This is going to be a video about the SpongeBob SquarePants battle for a Bikini Bottom game, right? So this is a remake, I believe, of a 2003 SpongeBob SquarePants game. So with a lot of remakes, right, so they obviously changed. So that's basically the old game, but with modern graphics, right? So first thing though, this game, it looks amazing, right? It looks beautiful. The saturation, the visuals, the resolution, everything about this game is very stunning and very bright, right? Very bright colored. And the game brings back a lot of nostalgia. I grew up during the SpongeBob era, right? So the 2000s era, right? That's when I grew up, right? So the SpongeBob SquarePants, a cartoon era, right? Growing up, I would also watch stuff like Power Rangers, Fairy Odd Parents, right? The Crimson Chin, etc. So it's very cool to see a cartoon game here. Yeah, so being able to play now, like in a PS4 game, it is pretty cool. Now with this game, you get the option, you can play a SpongeBob, Patrick, and a Sandy, right? And the main, that's kind of like a third person kind of adventure style with platforms here, puzzles here, etc. So the main gist of the game is that you're trying to find what was it again? You're trying to get as many of these golden spatulas as possible. So the more of these spatulas that you have, the more you can unlock over time, right? So you basically unlock like different areas, right? So the different areas that you unlock, and the more of these spatulas the more these spatulas that you find or unlock, the better off you are. So it involves, like I said before, it involves platforming, fighting enemies. It's like these are robotic enemies you fight, right? There are sometimes traps and puzzles, etc. And the different characters. So the three different characters that you play as, they'll have different, slightly different abilities, right? So Sandy has a very cool ability where she has this lasso whip, like this lasso, and she can glide as she kind of, I don't know, she's able to glide with the whip as she jumps, right? As she jumps, and it's a lot easier to jump onto the next platform. Patrick, I believe he has like this kind of Patrick and SpongeBob have the kind of the up, where you press jump and then bounce, right? So this a bounce ability, right? Other one, SpongeBob has this thing where it's like an uppercut ability, and this bowling ball kind of what are you calling it? Bowling ball, a bubble ability, right? So yeah, the gameplay reminds me a lot of that SpongeBob SquarePants 2005, or what, the 2004 movie SpongeBob SquarePants game, right? So I remember growing up, I played that one a lot. I played that one a whole lot, right? But this game reminds me of that. The only thing with that game, you couldn't play as Sandy. So the a lot of it though, like lots of the areas, like I said before, very visually impressive. You go to beach line areas, it's obviously a Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob. So you can go inside of SpongeBob SquarePants' house, and there's lots of characters out from the lore: Plankton, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, etc. Right? So lots of different characters, and they'll have certain characters, right? It's important to interact with the characters because they will give you more golden spatulas if you help them out, like with a favor, right? So Patrick, for example, there's like this kind of a mini quest line, right, where you find these kind of socks, right? And the more of these socks that you find, you bring them at the Patrick, then he gives you more golden spatulas, right? And yeah, it reminds me, the gameplay is very similar to if you played kind of what's it called, like it's Spyro, right? So the Spyro, it reminds me a lot of like a Spyro type game, right? um this is not difficult. However, it's gonna have, like I said before, it's gonna have some of those puzzles and loopholes. There's also bosses, right? So there's like a boss is like a cool, so because it's like these robotic enemies, and they kind of made this giant robotic clone of Sandy and Patrick, right? And yeah, these are like bosses, right? So there's certain stages where there's gonna be bosses. The bosses are, they pretty, are pretty easy, right? Avoid being hit, wait for the weak point, right? And etc. Now you can always go back to previous levels, right? It's important because you know if you don't have, for example, like to unlock a certain area, let's say if you get to the middle of the game and you need 40 golden spatulas, but you only have 34, so you have to go back to previous areas and try and complete, try and get as many of these spatulas as possible. You get spatulas by, like I said before, exploring, completing certain areas, challenges, etc. Or sorry, doing certain side quest lines. But you can always go back. For example, there's one. It's like kind of like this race, a time trial, right? So you go down like this slide, right? As SpongeBob, either SpongeBob, Patrick, or Sandy, and if you there's certain time trials where if you beat the time, you'll get the spatula, or other ones where just completing that kind of track gives you gives you the spatula, right? But it's just so cool. Like playing through this game is so cool to be back in this world. Kind of back in that world, right? But if you grew up like with the SpongeBob era, I recommend it, right? It came out, and this is by THQ Nordic, so it came out around the same time as what was it? The Destroy All Humans 1 remake. So I believe this was a 2020, a 2021 game. So yeah, so but like if you like remakes and if you like SpongeBob or adventure platformers, I recommend it, right? So yeah, please like and subscribe. Let me know down below if you have this game. Thank you.